Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at B&T in Thun, Switzerland, taking a look at some of the cool guns out of their reference collection. Today, we have a Beretta 951A. That is the automatic version of the Beretta Model 51. This came about in development not that long after the Beretta 51 was developed. The 51 was a fairly successful pistol, actually. If you're not familiar with the 51, this is essentially the locking system of the Beretta 92, but it is in a single stack, single action only design. So introduced in 51, it was used by the Italian military completely. It was also sold fairly extensively in North Africa. So the Egyptians, or the United Arab Republic, depending on what time frame you're talking about, they actually bought some and licensed production of it. And so this was popular enough that it leads Beretta to work on a full auto machine pistol version. This wasn't their first machine pistol. They actually made full auto versions of the Beretta 1923, which was also offered with a shoulder stock. Someday, hopefully, I'll find one of those pistols and we'll do a video on it. But what they did with this is make a number of significant modifications to the gun in an effort to reduce the cyclic rate and keep it reasonably controllable. So obviously, you can see the front grip. This is actually a folding front grip. In fact, you know what? Why don't we just zoom in right now and let me show you what they changed on this from a regular 51. All right, let's start with the big elephant in the room, and that is this wooden front grip. That is attached to the front end of the frame, of course. We'll take this apart in a minute and you'll see that a little more clearly. But it does fold up so that in theory you could put this in a holster. It would be kind of a large holster, but you could do it. There is nothing holding this in place other than friction. So when you're shooting, I think you would put your thumb behind it like that, and that'll keep it from folding. So folding is really not a problem. You're gonna be pushing out on this front grip pretty substantially when you're shooting. There's our serial number, A00078Z. I suspect the Z is full auto. A is the serial number range on these, the 951As. And only number 78 made. These never really went into massive production. They didn't get any main contracts for them. Now, this is where the selector switch is supposed to be. Unfortunately, a while back, in order to comply with Swiss gun laws, this one was down converted to semi-auto. So the switch is gone, but you can see it had an automatic and a semi-automatic selection. It's a very simple little lever. We'll take a look at it inside in a moment. There are our original Italian proof marks. And here on the left side of the slide, we have pistol automatic Beretta caliber 9mm. The AUT dot is the most substantial portion there. This is the automatic Beretta pistol. The magazine release on the 951 is here at the bottom of the grip, like some of the early Model 92s. Standard is an 8-round magazine. This was also made with, well, they made 10-round, 15-round, and 20-round magazines for it, but all of them are single stack mags, so the extended mags got pretty long. Now let's go ahead and disassemble this. Flip the lever forward, slide assembly comes off, and then we'll pull out a non-captive recoil spring. And we have the wedge. There we go. We have a wedge locking block, pivoting locking wedge right there. This is the exact same mechanism that Beretta would use on the 92. So it's also the mechanism from the Walther P38, by the way. So the Beretta 51 is essentially, you could look at it as the hybrid of the Walther P38 and the Beretta 92. So aside from that big wooden front grip, one of the other most substantial changes to the gun is in the slide here. The overall weight of the moving parts has been increased by about 12 ounces, which is really quite substantial, over the standard Beretta 51. So this comes in at 46 ounces total. The barrel is about 4/10 of an inch longer than a standard Beretta 51 barrel. This is all done to increase the weight, or the mass, of the moving parts to help reduce the rate of fire. Machine pistols always have a quite high rate of fire. This brought the rate of fire down to about 750 rounds, or just slightly more. Now I'm going to take off the grip panels. All right, there we go. The safety, by the way, is this cross bolt affair right up here. That's fire, that's safe. So the way that this normally works as a semi-auto pistol is you have this bar here, and if this is pushed downward, and you can see this lug at the top is just underneath the slide rails, and there's a little cutout in the slide right there. So when the slide is in battery, ready to fire, this bar pushes up under spring tension, and then when you pull the trigger, it's going to push back on the sear here and fire. Ignore the fact that the hammer is not dropping for the moment. I'll explain that. When the gun cycles, this gets pushed down. So if I pull the trigger back and hold it, this gets pushed down when the slide cycles, and now the trigger bar is disconnected from the sear back in here. And so I have to release the trigger in order to fire again. Release it, and that's how you function in semi-auto. Now what the full auto selector lever here did was push this all the way down so that now it's engaging on this lower section of the sear, and it doesn't care where the slide's going. As long as I hold the trigger down, the hammer is going to drop every time the slide goes forward. Now, the second part of any professional full auto mechanism is some sort of auto disconnect. The idea is we don't want the hammer to just follow the slide home, because then you are likely to get a variety of malfunctions. Instead, you want the hammer to stay back until the slide has just closed, essentially simulate very fast semi-auto fire. And so they added a full auto disconnect here on the left side of the gun. So if I push this down, you'll see the hammer just snap up a tiny bit. There it is. That would normally be, if I were in full auto and holding the trigger, that would release the hammer to go all the way back. This is the same as a full auto disconnect in any rifle, and it is operated by this little ramp right here. So this cutout in the slide is cycling back and forth over that little point, and it doesn't touch it until the slide comes all the way forward. In fact, I can show that to you. So the slide is going to come all the way forward till right here it's going to trip the disconnector. Click, just like that. All right, I'm going to pull the screws out here so we can take off this wooden front grip. It's actually two pieces, one on either side, and you can see the steel lug that goes underneath. So there's just a spring right in there that's going to snap into one of two ball sockets, and that's what keeps it in position. And here it just wraps around the trigger guard. All right, and there you go. There is the Beretta 951A all disassembled. It should probably come as a surprise to basically nobody that this wasn't really a successful practical gun, and it was shelved for a while. The magazine capacity, especially being limited to single stack magazines, yes, they made mags up to 20 rounds, but that's a long stick hanging out the bottom of this. Not super practical. The rate of fire was in excess of 750 rounds a minute, which is actually not that bad by machine pistol standards, but especially with that very heavy slide banging back and forth, I suspect the muzzle climb on this was pretty substantial, and they essentially had no clients for it in that initial guise. Now, in the early 1970s, the project makes a comeback. They bring back the 951A, and they redesignate it the 951R. You may be thinking, Beretta 93R? Yeah, it's same idea, Rafale or Rafika, the select fire, fast firing model. Now, the second version had a couple minor differences, like the 951Rs had a fixed front grip. It didn't fold at all, and that was in theory to help force people to hold on to the front grip vertically to keep the gun stable. They were apparently only offered with 10-round extended magazines, and 10 rounds at 750 rounds a minute is a very short rate of fire, very short available amount of fire. That was in theory to force fire discipline, but to my mind, if you're going to force fire discipline like that, the better way to do it is limit the pistol to semi-auto and just issue a regular Beretta 51. At any rate, the 951R was not ultimately any more successful than the 951A. In about 1975, Beretta switches tack. They dropped this project entirely, and they moved to experimenting with a full auto version of the Beretta 92 platform. That one you're definitely familiar with, because the result of that project was the Beretta 93R, which was successful insofar as a bunch of them were manufactured, and they're theoretically reasonably shootable. They come with a folding front grip and also a detachable folding stock, and the stock really helps in keeping them controllable. The 951A here suffers from basically all the standard issues you get with a machine pistol. They sound really cool, they look awesome. If you get them demoed by someone who's done a lot of practice on the range, they can look super operator, super impressive, but you put them into the hands of actual people who are going to theoretically use them, typically police. They don't train with them that much because they have a lot of other stuff to do. They don't generally develop the skills to be able to successfully manage an automatic machine pistol, and the results are less beneficial than just semi-autos. So that's kind of like, that's the basic story of every machine pistol ever developed. That's the Glock 18, that's the Beretta 951, the Beretta 93, the CZ75 automatic, etc., etc. Anyway, these are extremely rare because, well, they never went into actual serial, they went into serial production, but they never had any major contracts the way most of the other machine pistols that we're aware of did. So a big thanks to B&T for giving me access to this one to show to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.